Hey, how's it going? Vladimir here. Welcome to the Business Convo Marketing Podcast. As a business owner, you've likely seen a lot of marketing campaigns, some of them that's worked very well, while others may have not worked so well. So the question is, how do you decipher between the ones that have worked very well compared to those that have not worked so well? Well, this podcast will answer those questions for you, and specifically will help you to decipher the ones that have been successful, why are they successful, and pull out those exact elements from those marketing campaigns and that information over to you so that way you can implement it in your business and start getting results as soon as possible. Welcome aboard and let's go. Hey, in this episode, I want to share with you a recording from a video that I did in my Facebook group, The Facebook group is called Sales Funnel for Entrepreneurs. I highly encourage that you join that group, because what happens is that it allows you the ability to be able to engage with some of this content. You can go ahead and ask questions. You can engage with other members of the group. So for this specific episode, that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I want to go ahead and drop in the recording that I did inside of the Facebook group. The Facebook group, again, is called Sales Funnel for Entrepreneurs. You can go ahead and go to Facebook and request to join the group. And essentially, the thing that I discuss in this specific topic is I discuss three critical skills, foundational skills that you need in order to be successful as it relates to your marketing campaigns. This is going to be a good episode. Go ahead and have a listen, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey there, how's it going? Vladimir here. Good evening. And tonight I want to talk to you guys about how you cannot lose. You can't lose with this. You can't lose if you start with these three critical steps. I know that some of you guys that have joined this group may be new to marketing. You may already know some marketing stuff, or you may already be attracting some clients. So I wanted to kind of just give you some foundational stuff that you can do from the very start, essentially, some things you can do from the very beginning, so that way you can win, right? This is a winning group. This is a group that is designed to give you strategies so that way you can win. And guess what? I have the handwriting is pretty bad though. So I probably have to work on the handwriting. So, hey, I want to talk to you about three things. So the first step, this is three critical steps. If you follow these three steps from a foundational standpoint, you can't lose. So the first step is that, you must start with content. Say, okay, specifically, you must start with connecting content. This is an important first step because nothing happens without content. So think about it this way. So you're in your own little world, so to speak, and you start off with building a website. Let's just say you start off with building a website. And to begin with, right, you're in your own little zone, your own little world, and no one knows about this specific website. How do you bring people back to the website? How do you begin to get noticed? How do you begin to kind of just make some traction? Is via content. I say content, but I say connecting content, because there's a huge difference between the two. There's a difference between just putting content out there, and there's a difference between putting content that's going to connect the dots. So the type of content that I'm referring to is content that's going to connect the dot. I remember one of the first things I started learning in this whole marketing game was search engine optimization. Well, let's take a step back. So before I learned search engine optimization, I hired a company to do search engine optimization for me. And when I hired the company to do the search engine optimization for me, one of the first things they started to do is they picked out some keywords. They was like, hey, you know what? One of the first steps in search engine optimization is that you must pick some keywords. And these specific keywords, what's going to happen with these keywords is people are going to search for these keywords, and they're going to find your company. They're going to find your services. They're going to find whatever it is that you do online. And that is how you're going to get noticed. That's how you're going to get some traction to your website. And they say, hey, by the way, it takes time. You're not going to get this traction right away. Search engine optimization can take between 6 to 8 months. So you have to be patient, right? They said to me, this is like a chess game. You won't get traction right away, but man, oh man, over time, with this whole search engine optimization game, you're going to gain a lot of traction over time. So, here I am, and I paid for this service, very excited, looking forward to the day that the traction comes. And guess what? 3.5, 4 years later, that traction has yet to come from the keywords that these individuals, quote unquote, optimized for me. So we selected some keywords about 3.5 years ago, and the individual that I had hired, they were going to be bringing me some traction based on some keywords that we had selected. As of today, still no traction. Do you know why? There was no content built around those specific keywords. I think what they were doing is they were just building some links to pages that didn't necessarily have any content. So now let me compare that to some of the work that I did. Some of the work that I did later on, say 1.5 years later, when I started to learn about search engine optimization, I did my own content creation. I did exactly what I'm going to tell you guys to be doing is I'm going to be building some connecting content. And when I built the connecting content, when I built the connecting content, a couple of months later, I started to get some traction from those the exact same content that I had created. What was the difference? The difference was I created content, and the individual that I had hired didn't create any content whatsoever. They were kind of just blowing smoke. So it starts off with connecting content, right? So the connecting content for that specific business was written content by way of a blog, right? So when I say connecting content, it could be content that it could be content via a blog. It could be content via a vlog, which is video. It could be content via video. It could be content via a podcast. So it could be any one of those forms. You can produce content by any means necessary. It doesn't have to be written. If you like to write, you can write connecting content. You can create connecting content by way of writing. If you like to speak, you can create content by way of speaking. There's different mechanisms for you to create content, but it has to be connecting content. All right. So that's the first step. That's one of the critical steps as it relates to getting traction and making this whole marketing thing work for you. Without content, right, you're kind of dead in the water. So this is a very critical first step, and it has to be connecting content, right? And I'll explain to you what I mean when I say connecting content, because connecting content means that it has to connect to your audience and that it has to connect back to your product. So it has to do those two things. You can't just be putting content out there just for the purpose of putting content. You have to put content out there to connect to your audience. So it connects up. So let's just say if your audience is up, you're producing content that's going to connect up with them. And then that content is going to, they're going to connect back to your content as well. So it's a two-way thing. All right. So the next thing is what is the point? What is the point of building content anyway? I kind of alluded to the fact that, you're doing it to build, to build an audience. That's your reason for connecting, for creating content. And essentially, before you create content, you have to know that you're in the business of selling. I don't think I have to tell you this, but essentially the goal is to sell. The goal is to make sales. The goal is to, make some money. The goal is to make a profit. So your goal is to make sales. So you have to specifically know what it is that you're selling. I know that sounds kind of like, kind of obvious, but you need to begin with that in mind. Before you start to produce content, you need to know precisely what it is that you are selling. There's many things that you can sell. Obviously, I've connected with business owners via my meetup and via other mechanisms that sell many different things. The individual that is in the business of selling makeup is going to build an audience by way of content, with knowing that at the end of the day, she wants to sell that individual makeup. The individual that's in the business of, selling tax services is going to build connecting content that's going to connect with her end user, knowing that the place that she wants to take her end user is to sell her services by way of taxes. Too many times I see people kind of just begin to produce content without necessarily connecting the dot and connecting the fact that that content has to have an end result, and that content has to have an end goal. There has to be an end goal, and that end goal has to be, sales. Now, you don't go directly to that end goal, right? That's why I say it's connecting. There's dots in between that, but you have to start with that in mind. Other forms of selling, other things that that people sell. People sell advertising as well. So for me, I recently started following a Haitian comedian, and essentially what this guy does is he's a comedian. So he does some stuff on, I think the platforms that he's on now. He does some stuff on Instagram and he does some stuff on Facebook, and he does little skits and stuff via these different platforms. But they're just mini skits to eventually get to a bigger show, so to speak, so that way when he goes to a specific city, he can build an audience, he can build a following, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, the thing that he's selling, from what I can see right now, is he's selling comedy. He wants people to come to his show. But another thing that he can sell is he can sell advertising. Essentially, this guy, I think, had close to 900,000 followers. And as an individual who has 900,000 followers, who's a comedian in the Haitian community, for example, if I'm looking to find an audience, and that audience is of the Haitian descent, I can pay this guy to promote my product. So just like that, he can become an advertiser, so to speak. So he can be in the business of selling his comedy shows, plus he can be in the business of selling advertising space to someone like myself. Think about this exact same platform that we're on right now, Facebook. Facebook is definitely in the business of selling advertising. So they sell advertising. So does Google. So you have to keep that in mind. That's the second thing that you must be very clear on, is precisely what it is that you're selling. You got to know exactly what you're selling, because when you know what you're selling, then you know how to connect the content from content to audience and from audience to content. Very, very critical step in this 3-step process. The last step in this process is you have to know your avatar. So you have to know your customer avatar. You have to know who it is that you're selling to, who's your ideal client, right? We all have an ideal client. So for my, and you have to get very specific. Let me give you an example. So for my dating product, if I'm in a dating business, for example, let's just say I'm in a dating business and I have a dating site that's specific to people who like to dance. So my avatar, right? If I'm producing content, if I am trying to attract, because when you identify and when you start to kind of build and put together your customer avatar, you're doing one of two things. You are attracting people, and you're repelling individuals as well. So as it relates to that, what you have to do is you have to get very clear on who your avatar is. Once you become very clear on who your avatar is, then you can start to produce content that's going to attract that specific individual. Once you start to produce content for everyone, that is when you lose, and that is when you start to produce content for no one. It's extremely important step in the process in terms of knowing who your customer avatar is. So as an example, just going back to the dating example, the dating website is designed to attract individuals who like to dance. I can say, hey, that person has to be single. So that's one of the parameters. If I'm creating what we call a customer avatar, that person has to be single. Let's just say, it's a young lady that's single between the age of, 19 and 24. She's single. She likes to dance. She likes a specific genre of music, and she don't mind connecting with people. On the dance floor, for example. So if that's my customer avatar, now I know precisely what type of content to produce in order to attract that specific individual, right? So a couple of things will happen. Every time I begin to produce content, I'm going to have that specific individual in mind, and everything that I do will involve that specific individual, because that individual is my customer avatar. When it is time for me to go into to partner up with certain influencers, for example, if I'm partnering up with certain type of influencers, if I have an influencer who's a marriage counselor, and that individual has a following of 1 million individuals, that's not a good place for me to go promote and or market my products or my services, because my customer. It doesn't fit with my customer avatar. I was listening to an individual talk about this for the radio industry of all things, and it threw me for a surprise, to be honest with you, because with the radio, for example, this individual was saying that in the radio industry, they have an ideal target audience. And the way that this individual was explaining it is that the customer avatar that he was talking about at the time was a young lady. The young lady was between the age, I think, of 18 to 22. And the young lady had to like certain types of genre of music, a certain type of artist. And when it came time for them to do giveaways, when it came time for them to interview other artists, and obviously when it came time for them to play music, that is the individual they kept in mind, because they know that that's who they want to attract. They want to attract individuals within that specific age range, and they want those individuals within that specific age range to invite their friends over as well to listen to the radio station. So if a big time artist was in town and that person was in the country music genre, for example, it wouldn't make any sense for them to interview that specific individual, because that individual is not in line with who their listener is. Does that make sense? Right. So because that individual, their audience, I should say their customer avatar wouldn't relate to or doesn't resonate with that type of artist, they wouldn't waste their time interviewing that specific individual, and they wouldn't waste their time connecting with that specific individual. So everything they did, essentially, before they produced any type of content, before they produced any type of music, before they did giveaways, everything they did, they kept that in mind. They kept the customer avatar in mind, because the customer avatar is precisely what it is that they wanted. So now if someone comes to, they're not trying to attract the individual who likes reggae music or compa music or other types of music. They're trying to attract a specific type of individual. They know that's who that they're attracting. They created a profile for that specific individual, and in creating that profile for that specific individual, everything they do is to attract that type of individual, and also everything they do is to repel anyone that's not that type of individual as well. And they're perfectly okay with that, and you have to be perfectly okay with attracting a certain type of audience and also repelling the wrong group of individuals as well. Those are the steps. Let me kind of just do a brief run through of them again. Let me make sure I have my handy dandy flashcards in order. So I have step 1, you need connecting content. Connecting content, that's the first step. That's a must. Without connecting content, you're dead in the water. And then the other thing is, what is the point of building content? We talked about the point of building content is for you to connect the dot with your target audience, and they connect the dot back to you as well. You're building content to attract buyers, right? So that's your goal. When you're building content, your end goal is to attract buyers, and then you need a customer avatar. Customer avatar basically drives everything that you do. It is okay if you do not attract a specific type of individual, because when you start to talk to everyone, then you talk to no one. So from a foundational standpoint, these are some things that you must include if you want to lose. You can't lose if you start with these critical steps. So I wanted to kind of jump on and provide these very important steps to you as it relates to building a foundation when it comes to marketing. That's my time. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. Do you want to attract leads as soon as possible? Be sure to go to my website at vladimirdarnes.com and download your free lead magnet how-to video. It's a step-by-step video that will teach you how to generate and create a lead magnet to attract leads as soon as possible and start making sales. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast and subscribe as soon as possible. Thanks for listening.